Imagine if your legs started growing uncontrollably. What would you do? Just like in the photo. It's not that they get longer, but they become more and more swollen. Some viewers might say amputating would solve the problem, right? But in the case in the photo, it seems amputations cannot stop the growth, because the remaining limb continues to grow after the amputation. In the end, there might not even be a chance for a prosthetic limb. Why is that? Because its rate of growth completely exceeds the rate at which prosthetics can be made. In fact, this is an extremely rare condition. Only over 200 cases have been diagnosed worldwide. Currently, only 120 people are alive. They're dragging the largest and heaviest legs in the world. They hope that experts can come up with new treatment plans, even if it's just to control the excessive growth. The woman in the video is named Mandy Sellers. She was born on February 20, 1975 in Lancashire, England. Her family was immersed in the joy of the new arrival. However, the joy was short-lived as the doctors noticed something was amiss. Mandy had abnormally large and deformed legs. Additionally, her left leg was at least 7 centimeters longer than her right. Her body proportions were seriously unbalanced. Gradually, her legs became twice the size of an average baby's. Most importantly, the rate of growth in the deformed area was astonishing. While other parts of her body developed normally, the doctors couldn't determine what the condition was, but they estimated that Mandy wouldn't live long. Later, at about a year and a half, Mandy learned to walk. This brought hope to everyone. Although she couldn't run like other children, it didn't affect her playing with other kids at all. Additionally, Mandy learned to ride a bike. Although it took her more time than her peers, the feeling of reward from her efforts made her very happy. However, when she was 7, specialists advised Mandy's mother to consider amputation. Because her legs had grown excessively large, her entire body was severely unbalanced. If this continued, she wouldn't be able to walk at all. This news upset her parents. Had it really come to amputation? Watching their daughter, who could still run and jump, the mother couldn't bear the thought. She refused the specialist's advice. With her parents' support, Mandy went out to parties and made many friends, just like other teenagers. In 1994, at 19, Mandy moved out and lived independently. At this point, she no longer needed help from others. She could travel independently using crutches or a wheelchair. In addition, Mandy had a specially modified hand control car. With it, she could go out on her own. Despite having been afflicted by a rare condition since childhood, she has always been quick-witted and performed excellently in school. She earned a doctorate in psychology from the University of Central Lancashire. She also volunteered weekly at the local animal research center in her spare time. Assisting in cleaning rabbit cages, her abilities were truly commendable. In reality, these tasks sound very easy, but only to an ordinary person. Every morning, getting dressed alone takes Mandy at least an hour, sometimes even longer. By the time she finishes and goes to the kitchen for breakfast, she is basically exhausted. If she plans to go out, she must prepare thoroughly. Mandy has always strived to live a normal life, but reality often hits hard. For instance, she once encountered some inconsiderate adults in a restaurant. They exclaimed loudly upon seeing Mandy. They pointed and gawked at her legs. Loud laughter boomed openly. Although Mandy is accustomed to being the center of attention, she doesn't mind curious children staring at her. But adults behaving that way is rather cruel. However, at 28, Mandy's life underwent a significant change. Arthritis, renal vein thrombosis, and leg blood clots led to a decline in Mandy's health. Ultimately, this caused her to be paralyzed from the waist down for nearly 2 months. Mandy took a full 3 months to learn to walk again afterwards. This pain is probably unimaginable to anyone else. 3 years later, one day, Mandy accidentally bumped her leg, resulting in a blood infection. This was soon followed by kidney failure. She also contracted methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. During this time, Mandy's condition was quite poor. She sought medical help everywhere to find out what was wrong with her. Unfortunately, most doctors suspected this was a type of Proteus syndrome, but no one dared to make a definitive diagnosis. At this point, Mandy even began to wonder if she was the only person worldwide with this unknown condition. However, Some doctors regarded it as Proteus syndrome, named after the shape-shifting sea god Proteus from Greek mythology. Also known as Proteus syndrome, this condition is related to genetic mutations. It is extremely rare globally. Patients often appear relatively normal in childhood, but as they begin to grow, signs of this progressive disease become apparent. The main characteristic is noticeable asymmetry or excessive growth of skin, bones, and soft tissue. Additionally, there is significant variation in the degree of deformity between different cases. After learning the basics, Mandy understood that something had to change. Amputation was the only way to save her life. However, the amputation plan proposed by British experts was to directly amputate the left leg from the hip, and then amputate the right leg below the knee, which would make it impossible for Mandy to sit up by herself, making her even more disabled than she was without amputation. Obviously, she didn't quite approve of this plan. Coincidentally, a television production company contacted her at this time, proposing to make a documentary about Mandy called The Woman with Giant Legs. They promised to send Mandy to the United States for free to meet various experts, to hear if they had better treatment options. Mandy was very tempted, so she agreed without hesitation. Indeed, in the United States, Mandy met the famous plastic surgeon Dr. William Erdl and prosthetics expert Kevin Carroll. The two were known for collaborating on many challenging cases. Kevin had even made a prosthetic tail for a dolphin. During the conversation, Mandy also deeply realized that amputation was inevitable. As for the amputation plan proposed by the doctor earlier, William and Kevin also felt it was too drastic. This would obviously greatly limit her daily life moving forward. This conversation indeed brought a lot of hope to Mandy. In a November 2009 interview, Mandy estimated her total weight to be 133 kilograms, and her legs alone accounted for 95 kilograms. Her upper body was relatively slim, and she usually wore medium-sized clothes. This created a huge contrast compared to her legs. In 2010, Mandy underwent surgery on her left leg with amputation below the knee. Although not expecting to completely say goodbye to this puzzling illness, Mandy firmly believed that amputation would help stabilize her condition. However, a terrifying thing still happened. 22 months post-surgery, Mandy found that her residual limb was like a stump. It actually began to grow rapidly and swell. She had considered many complications that could arise post-surgery, but she had never considered this possibility. The growth rate exceeded her imagination. Soon, Mandy's left leg could no longer fit into a prosthetic. The speed of updating prosthetic sizes could not keep up with the swelling of her residual limb. Meanwhile, she found her mobility was also deteriorating. Her body was gradually becoming uncontrollable. From then on, Mandy realized that amputation could not stabilize her condition. If she continued to have amputations, it was likely she would keep growing uncontrollably. She remained strong-willed, exercised daily, and lived her life well. In 2013, a special program on a British television station reported Mandy's extremely rare case again. This time, genetic sequencing by doctors revealed that a mutation in the PIK3CA gene affected half of her body. This confirmed that Mandy's symptoms were not necessarily a case of Proteus syndrome. Based on the genetic information, she took rapamycin, which effectively stopped the continued growth of her legs. After 90 days, her condition showed improvement. About 5 months into the medication, Mandy could noticeably feel her legs shrinking. The prosthetic she had made before was already a perfect fit. Although this treatment method could not completely cure the disease, it was already a miracle for Mandy. In fact, historically, the most famous patient of Proteus syndrome is probably Joseph Merrick. You might not be familiar with this name, but you might recognize him from this photo, as he had a huge and deformed head. Thus, he was also known as the Elephant Man. Initially, Joseph was no different from ordinary babies. But by the age of 2, his mother noticed that brown growths started appearing on Joseph's skin. They felt bumpy and spongy to the touch. Soon, this condition spread to his neck, chest, back of the head, and back. As he grew older, the entire right side of Joseph's body was covered with these brownish growths. They looked very unsightly. The critical issue was due to the deformed growths. Joseph spoke indistinctly and moved clumsily. His life was filled with hardships. As an adult, to support himself, Joseph had to travel through various freak shows. In response to people's curiosity, Joseph explained that his deformity was due to a fright from an elephant while in his mother's womb. That's how he became the Elephant Man. Today, Mandy is the founder of a charitable organization. She is dedicated to providing any help for related patients. Additionally, she calls on electric wheelchair manufacturers to design wheelchairs with adjustable footrests. Even a small change can make a significant difference for the disabled in terms of convenience. In the end, Mandy hopes that through her story, she can raise awareness of this rare disease and eliminate prejudice. In fact, whether it's Joseph or Mandy, their ability to step out of their homes and strive to live shows a level of courage and endurance that surpasses ordinary people.